there are a lot of issues that are frustrating Nigerians, driving the conflict, and making it difficult to have, headway. It's making it difficult for the economy to thrive, for small businesses to thrive, for families to even feel safe where they are. Another major problem now is that while there is securitization of conflict, where it appears like the best approach is to provide security, so you have a curfew, and then you provide security when tensions are high, and then pull them out when that is gone. But you find that people are now providing their own security, and the people that benefit from that form of security are the elites, who can even hire uniform security men to go. So what happens to you and me? Ours might even be better. What happens to that person at the community level who has to sleep with one eye open? There are a lot of issues. Would we want our children to live in the conflict-driven communities that we grew up in? I don't want my children to experience what I experienced in Jos. I witnessed the crisis myself. I didn't have access to my friends. I couldn't go to there are some communities I still can't access in Jos Plateau State because of the factionalization that has happened. Part of development.
But these people, some of the elites can afford it. That's why they do it.
How many are the elites compared to the population of Nigeria? We have the numbers. We have the intention. All we need is to be united. With a united front, the elites can't divide us. I strongly believe that. You're Yoruba, I think you're Igbo, I'm Ibira. If it starts with this conversation that we're having today, telling the truth, drawing attention to the issues, it will trickle down.
This is Development Now, DEVNOW in Ogona's voice. Welcome aboard. My name is Bumi Afolabi, and of course, popularly known as Mr. Speaker, these days Mr. Development. Well, I'll take all of that. And this is DEVNOW. Now, for the benefit of those who are plugging in for the very first time, check out the previous videos. This is episode 6. Okay. This is episode 6. Yes, that means there was a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Now, DEVNOW is a 360 media platform that showcases development organizations or development agencies. We showcase their success stories, in some cases, even their challenges, before they got those success stories, the work they do, and we put it out there so that every one of us can see ourselves in those stories and also come on board to support. As always, I'm excited. Today is going to be fireworks. Yeah, because the representative of the organization we're having here, they are the largest, underline largest, put it on quote, italicize it, yeah. They are the largest peace building organization in the world. I know I got your attention, so stay with me. As always, I'm not alone, all right? I have my co-hosts, your friend, your Gen Z wannabe, the one and only Ugona Uwa Jumogu.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Dev Now or Development Now. I hope you've been enjoying all the episodes so far. This is episode 6. I think we need a round of applause. I can't believe how far we have come. Today we have a very exciting guest. I know we only bring exciting guests here because the work they are doing, so inspiring, and I hope you're going to be inspired again as you've always been. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I definitely am going to enjoy asking the questions. Bumi's here, she's here. We have a great show coming up today. Thank you.
So, without much further ado, we have our guest here. We're privileged to have our guest here. She is the country director of Search for Common Grounds. Yes, I know you've run into their name somewhere online. Yes, so today you're going to find out what they've been doing in Nigeria for the several number of years that they've been here. She is Fatima Abubakar. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. So, Search for Common Grounds will give you a brief, as always. Ugona and I will give you a brief on Search for Common Grounds. Then we'll let her do more of the talking. She'll go deeper. We're just going to give you, an overview. Now, Search, like they're fondly called, Search for Common Grounds can be a mouthful. So, Search.
The Gen Z way of saying it, perhaps.
Yeah, I told you, you're Gen Z wannabe. Search, as they're fondly called, is the largest dedicated peace-building organization in the world.
Wow.
In the whole wide world. Yeah. And Search works to prevent and end violent conflict before, during, and after a crisis. So they strive to build sustainable peace for generations to come.
So Search was founded in 1982. And with a total of more than 900 staff, Search implements projects from more than 50 offices and in 30 countries, including Africa, Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and the United States. I mean, that is
okay. So let's get into it. Let's get into the world of Search. So every time we say Search, you know what we're talking about, yeah? So let's come to you. Search in Nigeria. Let's narrow it down. How long has Search been in Nigeria? Maybe you want to touch on some of the programs, just as an overview. Probably you want to throw in some statistics as well. I mean, feel free. The DEVNOW audience, they're getting acquainted with statistics now. So probably some success stories, where you work and all of that. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Search for Common Ground has been in Nigeria since 2004, so we're celebrating our year of 20. And it's an opportunity for us to evaluate what we're doing well, what works, what doesn't, and how we can improve. We started off responding to the farmer herder conflict in the early 2000s in Plateau and a bit of Niger Delta, and then expanded to the northeast and other parts of Nigeria, responding to different forms of conflict as well as development or governance issues. We've worked on elections. We've worked on reintegration in terms of supporting children formerly associated with non-state armed groups reintegrate back into their communities safely and efficiently. We've also supported the government of Nigeria in sharing its communication strategy and message around the reintegration process, and also ensuring sustainability of that, working along with state government, different ministries, departments, and agencies. Search for Common Ground also works on in the Niger Delta. We are working to transform criminality and violence currently, working in Rivers, Delta, and Bayelsa State. We've worked on a lot of peace building thematic areas, but what is unique about our approach is that we're community driven. Whatever we design and implement has the insights and aspirations of the communities that we work with, and we work through structures. So we either strengthen the existing structures that are on ground, or we establish structures called the Peace Architecture Dialogue.
Peace Architecture Dialogue.
Yes.
Okay.
It's an approach that has 3 levels. Starting from, and now I'm going to start using peace building jargons.
Don't worry.
Please, we welcome it.
We want
anything that's complicated, we'll definitely define it.
You pause, you will define it, since you're the one that brought it up.
Yeah. So the first level of engagement is called the Community Response Network.
Okay.
Here you have community members, representatives of women groups, youth groups, and a bit of informal security that meet on a periodic basis to do an analysis of the conflict, identify the threats, the risks, the triggers, and then draw up action plans on how they can respond to these issues.
Okay.
Before the dialogues, they go through a training, conflict sensitivity training, conflict analysis training, and then also action plan development.
Okay.
And then they are also taught a bit of advocacy, community-based advocacy, for them to carry out their initiatives.
Okay.
So issues above their resolve are escalated to the next level, where you have the community security architecture dialogue.
Okay.
Here you have a bit of representation of government and ministries or departments that have a mandate to respond to some of the issues that come up. So there's there's information flow, there's networking, and there is different layers and levels of analysis of the issues and response to the issues.
Okay.
Issues beyond this second layer, which we have an acronym for called the CSAD, is taken to the state level, where you have
CSAD,
the that's the Community Security Architecture Dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah, CSAD.
Yeah.
Is taken to the state level, where you have the Peace Architecture Dialogue, called the PADs. Here you have higher level of government engagement and higher level of mandate, more formal security presence, working with representatives of the groups in conflict, often the farmer header groups, for instance, and then you would also have representatives of academicians, because sometimes there's need for research as well, taking the practice to the academic fold, and then also bringing those academic, so bringing that relationship between theory and practice at that level, because whatever we do also has to form the knowledge that is being shared in the academic space. But beyond that is convening multiple sectors to come together, build their capacity, build their agency, and identifying new ways of doing peace building that is going to shape the future. So while we are the largest dedicated peace building organization, we don't know it all. We leverage on the creativity of the people that we engage with, the innovation of the people that we engage with, and their hopes and aspiration. And some of the things that Search for Common Ground has done that I believe is unique and shows that what we do works is that we listen. We listen to the voices that are usually not amplified. That is the voices of youth, the voices of women, the voices of vulnerable people. And we also do a series of reflections and evaluations along with them. This has led to the development of certain tools that we're now pushing out, not just for our utilization, but to partners in the peace building community. We have a peace impact framework. It was developed with other peace building organizations, but what it does is that it has about 5 pillars that helps you think critically about, does peace building work? So these 5 pillars, some of the things that it touches on is about how do you increase personal agency, individual agency, because at the end of the day, peace building starts from an individual before institutions.
Correct.
And once you're able to achieve individual or personal agency, then you move to institutions, and there we are looking at institutional legitimacy. We also look at the level of violence, if it is reducing or escalating. What are the factors driving the reduction or the escalation? We also look at the resources that goes into peace building. It's usually difficult to make a business case for peace building. So, being able to estimate
for
peace building.
Okay,
Yes,
that's interesting.
So being able to estimate how much goes into the peace building sector, what resources you need to bring peace, and not just in terms of money, but the people, the time, the volunteers oftentimes that work on peace building is also something to consider. So the 5 pillars on the peace impact framework helps us be much more intentional, much more deliberate about the impact that we want to see and the impact that we want to measure. And then one way that we design this impact along with communities is another tool that we called the Grounded Accountability Methodology. We love abbreviations. It's called GAM.
I was just about to say that.
GAM.
So the GAM helps you design what peace building should look like along with communities. So we are not just grand peace builders coming into communities and teaching our approaches. No, we work with communities at the design stage to say, what would peace feel like
in the community?
In the community. What would peace look like? What are the indices that you think we could measure? What are the parameters? What structures would be in the community that will tell you that there is peace? So sometimes you'd hear communities tell you that if I'm able to move at night, it means there is peace.
So what
Someone
does peace
would
mean
tell
to
you it's at the end of the day, it's relative. What peace means to you might not be the same as what peace means to Bumi, for instance, or to me. Another person would tell you that if I am able to sell my goods at the marketplace, then there is peace.
And there's peace.
If I'm able to have access to my farmland without interruption, destruction of the crops, loss of lives, then there is peace. Others would tell you that when you have different representatives of the groups coming together to think of how to
sheath their swords,
then there is peace. And others will tell you that when government listens to us and is responsive to our issues, then there is peace. So it's a beautiful tool that we are utilizing to see and also drive ownership of peace building processes at community level. Some of our approaches also include media. It's what we started with. Training journalists on conflict sensitive reporting, fact finding, and then also developing radio programs, TV programs. In the past, we've had a TV program that was called The President, which was a female running for presidency, and the live program really affected how women were able to not just go out to vote, but also stand as candidates in elections in one of the countries that we work in. Some of our media programs also cascade down to the community level, where we do theater performances to drive home some of the behavioral messages. And the key element for us is radio, because radio goes far and wide.
To the grassroots. Wow. That is a lot. Like we had told you, it's a lot. The work to do is a lot, and it's good that this is coming on DEVNOW at a time like this. I think I'll allow Ogona, wade in at this point. But
so I want to talk about Nigeria, because your organization was established in 1982, and I heard you say that you came into Nigeria in 2004, right? So what was the catalyst? Why Nigeria? What was the cause that drove search into Nigeria?
So from what we've gathered is that there were already signs that a lot of the conflicts that we're experiencing today were going to happen. There were a series of advocacy.
That's the before, during and after.
Yes.
So that's the before.
A lot of the advocacies that
Sorry,
were
before you
carried
leave
out.
the signs, can you drill down on the signs? Maybe you could mention a few, like, how did you just see that? Are you a prophet? Someone in DEVNOW audience is wondering, are you a prophet? How did you know?
No. Some of the signs early on were the conversations that people were having that was showing polarization. And the polarization was either on ethnic basis, on political basis, or on religious basis. And then the tendency to want to use violence as an approach to address certain levels of frustrations were also evident at that point. Take the Plateau crisis, for instance, where there were signs years before the crisis happened, and after it happened, there were also signs that preventive measures needed to be taken to avoid reprisal attacks. So those were some of the things that brought search to Nigeria, to come and replicate some of our initiatives that have worked in other countries. And it's also because we had, at that time when search started, a country director who also had the lived experience of being in conflict. He was a Nigerian from Plateau State, and his community was also affected by the crisis. So I think sometimes for us Nigerians, having that lived experience also drives us to push for what needs to be done, the right resources to be allocated, and the right processes to be set up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. So, how are you able to navigate that? Since peace means different things to different people, especially in terms of religion and in tribes. So somebody might believe peace means when Igbo people are no longer in Lagos. So for some people, peace means when Muslims are no longer in Abuja. You know, there are different dynamics. So how are you able to create an equilibrium within communities? And I think that might be one of the hardest things that your organization has to do.
Before you go on, let me add Jara to that question.
Sure.
So there's a statement I found quite interesting. Search came up with it. You said you help supposed enemies trust each other. So that's why I want to add Jara to that question so that you can answer it very well. You help supposed enemies trust each other. Now, I don't like Ogona.
You love me.
Okay, so let's come back. So I don't like Ogona. Her sight irritates me, probably because of her religion or ethnicity. So, quote unquote, supposed enemies. Yeah. And maybe to answer this, if you're comfortable with it, you may want to use the example of Okwama and Okoloba in Delta State, if you can rope that in, because you have the military on one side. And for those who probably didn't follow, I mean, there was an incident that led to the death of several soldiers. I know the number, but I don't want to mention the numbers because they are human beings. Yeah. The most important is that people died. And then, of course, the military also came in and, sort of militarized the place. And I know Search has been doing a lot of work there. So how do you, yes, this is a complicated one, knowing that GAM is a tool that you're trying to use to say, what does peace mean to you? Given what has happened in that community, soldiers died, and you know that soldiers, there will be reprisal. There have been reprisals. Yeah. So how do you bring the military and the locals
together,
who feel they are supposed enemies right now,
to build trust? Okay, thank you so much for this beautiful question. I think it's a question that all peace builders should be asking. The good thing about the GAM you asked about is that beyond setting the peace building indicators along with the communities, it is also an accountability tool that communities would also use to assess and hold us responsible to say, we aimed to achieve ABC, where are we? So it helps us set timelines along with communities on what we want to achieve. And then it also helps us keep in check and keep our eyes on the ball. In terms of how you bring supposed enemies to then trust each other and have cohesion, there are different layers and approaches to it. What we do at Search for Common Ground is we apply do no harm principles, which means that our intervention should not further exacerbate the conflict situation. And then we also apply conflict sensitivity to that context. So for a lot of the dialogues that we've held, we start with intra-dialogue, where we sit with different groups and identify the core issues, the concerns, the threats, the risk, and we help them sit and articulate the issues in a way that they are ready to engage with the others. And then we have like a transformative dialogue methodology that is being taught, and it has some principles for engagement as well. So before the engagement, there are some ground rules that are being established. It's easier said than done, because usually emotions come to play. But then the training also helps you learn empathy, not sympathy. So while you come to dialogue, you're able to empathize with the other while you hear them share their own stories, their own experience, and you're better equipped to negotiate on the issues, addressing the core issue, the core problem, and not attack the people. What our methodology helps us do is to strengthen relationships with an understanding that conflict will always occur. We are not saying that we're going to end conflict, but we are aiming to transform how we address the conflict. Away from approaches that are adversarial, away from approaches that ends up leading to violence, to approaches that opens up opportunities for collaboration, joint initiatives, and trust building. Once we get to that level where we are at an appreciable level where we could work on a few things, we identify the low-hanging fruits that we can work on. Because if we go on something grand and we fail, the relationship would wither off. So the low-hanging fruits that communities can achieve together begins to build their trust and understanding on how best to work with each other, and then they can begin to bring in other stakeholders that would help shape their understanding of the issues and also how best to engage. In terms of engagement with military, our project in the Niger Delta is aware of that development, and we intended to have dialogues with the communities as well as some level of dialogues as well with security actors. And those are still conversations that we're having with the communities, preparing the readiness to engage.
What do you believe is the root cause of the ethnic and probably religious violence in Nigeria? Because Nigeria, I'm of the opinion that Nigeria is so great and so popular because in recent times Nigeria has gotten great PR, as I like to call it, all over the world. We talk about Nigerian men, Nigerian food, Nigerian women, Nigerian music, the Nigerian culture, our fashion. We've surpassed what we thought we could achieve, even with what I would describe as, I don't know if terrible governance is the word to use. I feel like Nigerians, we've proven to be beyond our government. It's like no matter what is going on, Nigerians would always make a move. And I believe that is, the credit goes to our diversity. We have such great food because there's so many tribes. So the Igbos bring this, the Yorubas bring this, the Shekiris bring this, that. Same with our music. So why is that with all these blessings, we still find a way to fight each other and hate each other? What do you think is the root cause of all of this? Is it
Indeed, Nigeria is a very beautiful country. We have a lot of potential to showcase, not just to Africa, but to the world largely. And one of the unique opportunities that we have is to show how to do governance differently, where the political will is there. In my opinion, at certain levels in government, there's been improvement. Improvement in the sense that I think government is beginning to listen. We have had opportunities where we've had engagement with some state governors opening up their office and their resources to say, we want development partners to come help us address these issues. I think that wasn't the culture before, where government opens its doors and openly says, we need support for you to help us address these issues. Now, in terms of what are the core drivers of the issues that we're finding today, I think they are structural. So while what we're seeing are the manifestations of the conflict, the core source of the conflict are structural issues such as indigenous settler issues about whether if you stayed in a community for hundreds of years, for instance, you are an indigene of that location or not. You're not issued an indigene certificate. You cannot run for political office. You cannot work in government, and you cannot go back to where you came from because you are no longer recognized as a member of that state anymore to even be issued indigene certificate as well. So you're in between. You're neither here or there. What happens when you don't have a sense of belonging in the community that has all your memories, your resources, your entire life? You feel out of place. And then when you look at ethnicity, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done for us to appreciate that diversity that you're talking about, rather than using it as a point to push things like political grievances among communities who barely even understand the politics that is happening either at national or state level. When it's time for elections, you'd see that there's a huge polarization across religion, across ethnicity.
Yeah.
But when you sit and talk with the people that are fueling that polarization, they don't even understand the conversation that is happening at national level or at state level, the critical issues, and how they can use this diversity as a tool to hold government accountable. How are you making sure that different ethnic groups are recognized in their own right? Beyond all of this is ensuring that each Nigerian is dignified, that their human rights is upheld, that human security is catered for. The insecurity that has been happening over the years, the response that has been received over the years in itself has reduced the trust that a lot of communities have in government to be able to respond to the issue.
Yeah.
So when government loses trust in people, there's little to nothing you can do to curb the excesses that we're seeing. Why? People would feel that they can pick up arms, perpetrate violence or criminality, and they wouldn't be caught. Another issue is the justice system. We know that a lot of work has been done, but holding people accountable for crimes committed is something that we've heard a lot of communities complain about, even to us peace builders, that it's okay for us to sit and dialogue and have an understanding, but the problem is not us in this room.
Yes.
What do we do with the trauma that we're living in, knowing that the perpetrators of the violence that has led us to these circumstances are walking the streets, accessing more resources in some instances than we do? So the justice system has to be strengthened to also address that issue, identifying different levels of perpetrators, high risk, low risk, and ensure that the right judgment is met. There are a lot of issues that are frustrating Nigerians, driving the conflict, and making it difficult to have, head rates, making it difficult for the economy to thrive, for small businesses to thrive, for families to even feel safe where they are. And, another major problem now is that while there is securitization of conflict, where it appears like the best approach is to provide security, so you have a curfew, and then you provide security when tensions are high, and then pull them out when that is gone. But you find that people are now providing their own security. And the people that benefit from that form of security are the elites, who can even hire uniform security men to go. So what happens to you and me? Ours might even be better. What happens to that person at the community level who has to sleep with one eye open? There are a lot of issues. And until we're able to be bold enough to talk about the issues, until we're able to be bold enough to bring everyone who deserves to be at the table to have a conversation about these issues, draw up actionable plans, dedicate resources to address these issues, draw up mechanisms to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the initiatives that are developed, and record what works and what doesn't. Because usually when you set up an approach, some mistakes could be made, some learnings could come out of it. Documenting that for what works and what doesn't. I think until we are more purpose driven about how to address these issues, we wouldn't really make headway.
These last elections, I think it opened our eyes to see just how fragmented or how broken Nigeria is, or how Nigerians are. I don't know if you saw what happened in Lagos and in many other states. It felt like there was this great divide. And we've always known this, but to see it so blatant, because on social media, where people, Twitter, now called X, as we all know, people were being very vocal about their prejudices against different tribes. For the first time I've ever seen it, there's something we call kitchen table talk, where we sit and we have this conversation. I mean, Igbo people like this, Yoruba people like this, but you keep it to yourself somewhat. But for the first time, I saw it so blatant. It's like, there. And these are people, elite people, these are people from the middle class, being so bold to say it, because at that point, it was all about the election. And I'm bringing this back to politicians. How does that frustrate the work that you do, knowing that politicians will always use these low-level issues to create such great divides across the country? How does that affect your job as a country director?
The signs have always been there that we would get to where we are if the preventive measures are not put in place. Indeed, it's frustrating to see that peace-building interventions are drawn back by the actions or acts of some of the political aspirants who think that the only way to achieve what they aim to is to divide communities and, in some instances also deploy some level of violence. But for us, rather than complaining about what we are seeing, we are also looking at opportunities to innovate our interventions to address these core drivers through our media intervention, highlighting issues, giving facts and evidence for why divisive narratives, polarization is not good, reminding people of what the effects of violence is, sometimes even bringing back the sad incidences that has happened in the past, and also sometimes estimating what we would have achieved if we didn't have the conflict, for us to see that it is more expensive to toe the path of violence than it is for us to toe the path of development.
But these people, some of the elites can afford it. That's why they do it.
How many are the elites compared to the population of Nigeria? We have the numbers. We have the intention. All we need is to be united. With a united front, the elites can't divide us. I strongly believe that. You're Yoruba, I think you're Igbo, I'm Ibira. If it starts with this conversation that we're having today, telling the truth, drawing attention to the issues, it will trickle down. Someone out there is inspired by you, Bumi, because you're asking the tough questions. Someone out there hopefully is inspired by me because I'm risking my life to go do peace building. Someone out there is inspired by you as a woman in the media sector, also asking tough questions that probably no one is asking. It's going to trigger some thinking. You and I don't have the answers that we need to solve the problem of Nigeria. The answer lies in every single individual watching us right now.
It takes me back to when you said your organization doesn't know it all.
What do you do? Peace building is not search for common grounds responsibility alone. There's only how far we can go. And because we are project driven, we could be in a state or in a community for 2-3 years. When we leave, what happens? If the intervention does not get to you, what do you do? We need to start asking critical questions about the responsibility that we all have as individuals, as Nigerians, to change the narrative, to change the dynamics, and begin to rebuild the kind of Nigeria that we want to see. You were talking about what SARC aims to do for generations to come. It's something we drum home among ourselves and colleagues, that it's not about us. It's not even about this generation. It's about the legacy that we leave. Most of us are parents. Would we want our children to live in the conflict-driven communities that we grew up in? I don't want my children to experience what I experienced in Jos. I witnessed the crisis myself. I didn't have access to my friends. I couldn't go to there are some communities I still can't access in Jos Plateau State because of the factionalization that has happened. Beautiful structures that hold fond memories to me as a child have been burnt down. There are some churches that I see that are so beautiful, and I imagine what happens within the premises. It's been burnt down. So it doesn't even allow me explore Christianity as a Muslim. It doesn't allow me form the kind of relationships I want to form with Christians as I want to. Why? Mutual suspicion, mutual fear. The issues are deep. And deep. Until we are ready to address them honestly and sincerely, we wouldn't make headway. Yet again, let us also appreciate the work that is being done by a lot of people to change the dynamics that we're seeing, because it takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it takes a lot of process thinking as well, if you may, to think about, of all the issues, what do we really do? One thing that Search for Common Ground in Nigeria is doing is to also evaluate ourselves. For the years we've been in Nigeria, 20 years now, while we are celebrating 20 years, what else? So what? Why? The answers do not come easily. There are fresh peace builders that are joining and learning. There are, if you may, veteran peace builders that are tired. Because, like you said, their efforts are drawn back, oftentimes because of the political activities or violence that happens, and it could be discouraging.
Yeah.
So how do you even inspire your team?
How do you stay inspired?
As peace builders to keep doing the work?
Yeah.
There are different approaches, but for me, I think what keeps me inspired is the need. The headlines are discouraging. The lives that are lost are discouraging. Properties destroyed. And as an individual, I simply can't accept that nothing can be done to change this. So for me, that keeps me inspired. Whether we're hitting the nail on the head is subject to another discussion, but we can't give up. Other things that keep me inspired is the young lady who goes through a training and is now vocal, is able to articulate her issues better, and when she speaks in front of an audience that she's not used to speaking to, you see the light, you see the hope. Recently, we traveled to Kaduna to engage with some of our participants on a freedom of religion or belief project, and we met one participant, Amina, who blew our minds. After the introduction, I asked a question about, so what are you going to use this training for? What are you learning, and what do you hope to do? So she said, just the day before, she went back to the hostel and asked her roommates, won't you ask me where I'm coming from and how I've spent my day? You should be curious about where I've been. Accountability. And then she went ahead to share with them some of the things that she learned at the training, and they went a step further to look online to see the resources that are speaking to that issue about conflict handling styles and why we need to empathize. And then the interest in that room increased. They want to learn more. For me, that is the success. Having one person that can trickle down the gains of whatever they get to others. Seeing stakeholders that don't often have access to each other come together and work on initiatives that are yielding results. It's encouraging. Seeing processes that are changing, responses that are coming through that weren't there before to address or reduce violence is encouraging. Seeing the number of people that show up to work enthusiastic to do their peace building work is encouraging. The partnerships that are opening up to work with peace builders it's encouraging. There are a lot of things that are encouraging, but it's not enough.
It's not enough.
We need more actors in the field. We need more resources, and we also want to let everyone know that it's all our responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility, through whatever you do, either through business, through media, private, public sector, to ensure that peace building thrives.
Okay, well, now let's go more practical. February 2024, and I'm mentioning the year because I don't know the year you're watching this. So, February 2024, you launched a toll-free line, to track cases of violations, religious-based violence in the country. So, that is it's 4 months, almost 4 months now, from when you launched it till now. How's that going? Can you share some details? I want the DEVNOW audience to come into that world. What is going on with the toll-free line? Are people responding to it? Is there enough sensitization that this exists? Probably in the hinterlands where they probably don't even speak English language. What they know is their native language, whether it's Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, whatever their tribe is. Is there enough sensitization regarding that? Are people using it? Then there was something you talked about, and I want you to tie it into this, where you talked about trust, people trusting the government. We've seen cases of, they came to such and such community. I'm talking about bandits now. They came to such and such communities. They raided for 1 hour. We called. We didn't get any response. I'm sure that also, frustrates your work sometimes, because now you're trying to bring them on board, and they're saying, even if we call, will anything happen? So how is that going? You could share numbers, you could share success stories in there. We just want the DEVNOW audience to come into that world.
Okay, so as a bit of background to what led to the toll-free line, we have an early warning, early response mechanism that addresses violations of freedom of religion or belief. There's a wide network of actors who are in what we call a referral mechanism for the response. There are representatives of the National Human Rights Commission, the Legal Aid Council, some religious representation like Form 1, Federation of Muslim Women Association of Nigeria, the Women's Wing of CAN, representation of CAN, JNI, Jamaat Nasrul Islam, because we recognize that it is important to work with religious actors in promoting freedom of religion or belief, and then providing linkages between them and government actors that have a mandate to respond to violations, human rights violations, and specifically freedom of religion or belief. We also work with Ministry of Justice, Federation of Female Lawyers Association for more nuanced cases around gender, and the NSCDC. So there are quite a number of actors.
National Orientation Agency.
Yes, National Orientation Agency that we're working with. So what these actors do is to first of all have a orientation on what freedom of religion or belief is, and what the contextual issues to us in Nigeria are. We've trained legal practitioners on what we call common ground approach to human rights violations, as well as journalists on common ground journalism. And we then convene to do some conflict sensitivity training and develop and design the referral pathway along with them. So when a case comes to us through secondary sources, we are able to channel the case to the appropriate authority, and then within the system some referral is able to be done. But like every other early warning, early response mechanism, what we've noticed is that the response side of things has a lot of improvement that needs to be done. Like you said, it's usually slow. Sometimes the bureaucracy also affects the response time. So what are the alternatives and what are the initiatives that can come in? Before I share that, we in tracking the issues, we have an offline and online method of tracking the issues. So offline would be through the platforms that we work with, that I mentioned, the peace architecture platforms that we have across all our projects, the communities that we work with. But we realized that even at that, because of the confidentiality or the sensitivity of the issue, sometimes someone would just want a much more private channel to raise an issue. That is why we decided to use a toll-free line. It's to provide confidentiality and safety. But we're also hoping that it would help us get information in the nick of time for a response to come up speedily. We're still addressing the response side. Yeah. We've had some cases, luckily, that didn't have the urgency in the sense that a life was threatened, and the response time didn't allow us intervene in time. But we're also trying to see how we can reduce the response time. We're also trying to see how we can strengthen collaboration among the actors, and we are also looking at the use of technology to improve response. And as an addition to the toll-free line, we're developing an interactive platform where the responders can, in real time, be able to interact on that platform, and we can track the status and the response level, so that if there's any challenge, we can be able to respond to that on our own part. So it's being developed. We're exploring the use of technology, sometimes the use of AI as well. It's good to utilize multiple tools. While the toll-free line is good, there are other channels that we could be accessed as well. We share the line either through our social media handles. We did a launch here in Abuja where we also set up a community of practice. So the idea is that every member of the community of practice also has the responsibility to cascade the line down to users and also ensure its utilization. Beyond that, we do an analysis of the violations of freedom of religion or belief. We validate what comes our way that are not reported directly through the toll-free line, but comes through the platforms that we've set up, and ensure that there is factual evidence to the issues, and that it is followed through either with support in terms of legal aid, psychosocial support, or whatever form of support that is needed.
Okay, I'm curious. It may be preemptive. I like what I hear regarding this, and I'm excited also that the DEVNOW audience is seeing that peace building is not like we're going to cross road and buy me chocolates. And then it's not a walk in the park.
It's quite complex.
It is complex,
especially because it means different things to different.
Yeah, and then there are several layers, and if you don't take it, it's like you're trying to take a step. If you miss one or two, you may just meet yourself.
So you can't rush peace.
So you can't rush it. It just has to be done gradually. But I'm curious. Laudable initiatives. Search for Common Grounds can't do it alone. I mean, I see that you partner with a lot of agencies, both development agencies and, of course, the government and community. While you're doing this, the part of sustainability, because I understand, I don't know how many years the project is for, sometimes 3 years, sometimes 5 years, at the end of it, how do we sustain those things? And that brings me back to when you said there are veteran peace builders that are tired. And what Ugonna said about, in some areas peace has been achieved. And I want to get practical. At some point we're grappling with Boko Haram in Nigeria. We heard that they were decimated, even though some are of the opinion that they metamorphosed into what we're sadly now seeing. Some call them bandits. Some call them unknown gunmen. It's not something to joke with. Some say unknown men. But, and what have you. Some call them kidnappers, straight up. Whichever way it is, they're miscreants. So I'm kind of curious how you're going to be able to inject the sustainability into this laudable architecture that you're putting together at the end of the program.
So just to remind you that our architecture is community level and community centered. While we try to have subnational and national level engagement. The crux of what we do is really at the community. And we do not think of sustainability midway or when we're about closing out a project. It's what we think about from the beginning. And we are learning. Some of the things that we are learning is that for these structures that we set up to be sustainable, we would need government to play its role to institutionalize these structures and take them up as their own. We've seen this successfully done in Plateau State, where we hand over structures to the Peace Building Agency, and these structures are still running. We are also seeing tremendous progress in Adamawa State, where the initiative has government ownership, government participation, and government resources. The meetings are held in government premises, facilitated sometimes by representatives of communities or the academicians or government. And we are seeing that even when such pulls out, those dialogues would keep happening, because it's a very fluid conflict is very fluid in the sense that you can't predict what would happen oftentimes. So when new issues come up, the ability to respond to it, the increased agency to respond to it, the increased ability to do analysis and not be tempted to deploy violence are some of the signs of sustainability that we are seeing. For us is to introduce approaches that work with communities to design interventions that they on their own can carry on even after when we pull out.
Gonna, you want to shoot?
No, yes, that is very, very inspired. So you have a project called the Community-Centered Approach to Transforming Criminality and Violence in the Niger Delta. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you bring us into this world in the Niger Delta and tell us what's the situation on ground and what is being done by you and your partners in that region?
Thank you. The community-centered approach to transform criminality and violence is an initiative that has 4 organizations forming a consortium, and it's one of the ways to build sustainability and partnership or collaboration, where one single organization is not just going to address an issue, but a consortium is formed and the different strengths of the organizations are leveraged on. So we have partners that are very strong in early warning, early response. They are on the table.
Okay.
We have partners that are very strong with livelihood initiatives. They are on the table.
Okay.
We have partners that are very strong with community-centered interventions. They are on the table. Partners that are very strong with media initiatives, partners that have done a lot of work around climate change, environmental degradation, and the likes. So the different elements put together, we hope, would bring a very comprehensive approach that would address issues at different levels. It's also a project that targets young people in the Niger Delta. We believe so much in the numbers, the potentials, and the opportunities that young people could harness in the Niger Delta to change the story of the Niger Delta. One thing I keep hearing from the Niger Delta is their approach, which is usually perceived as harsh, non-collaborative, not compromising. But that's not what I saw when I went to the Niger Delta. It's people striving to make a difference and also ensure that governance is done appropriately, effectively, and carrying people along. So, like I said, we listen a lot to what people are saying and what young people are saying and what they are demanding to see happens. While this project is limited in scope in terms of the issues that we're trying to address, we're also documenting the other issues that are coming out of the communities that we're working with, and we would would ensure that future interventions captures those needs as well. There are some issues that are related to environmental degradation, the gas flaring, and beyond peace building and community interventions. The scope of the livelihood and the demand as well is much bigger than what we aimed to achieve as a project. But the key thing also is realizing that societies are not monolithic, and that in the Niger Delta, interventions must be targeted to what are the issues women are facing, what are the issues men are facing, youth, and then designing the intervention to meet their needs as well, or giving them that space.
Not just assuming their needs.
Yes, giving them that space to have their own conversations, and then ensuring that there's also intergenerational dialogue between the younger generation and the older generation, and beyond the dialogue, agreeing together on what initiatives would be implemented in the community.
Okay, now I'm about to delve into a touchy issue.
Okay.
We talked about Boko Haram earlier. Yeah. So Boko Haram, they wreaked a lot of havoc. However, the one that can't leave any Nigerian's mind was, the abduction of, I think there were 276 school children from Chibok. And that stirred up the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. It went global and all of that.
It went political.
Yeah. And a number of them were able to escape when they were being abducted. I'm saying this for the DEVNOW audience, not for you, of course, because that's the space you work, and all of that. Where I'm going to is this. We know some of them, whether they were negotiated to come back or they escaped. For now, that's not the focus. The focus is reintegration, and that's where I'm going to my question. I read the sad account of one of them who, and I'm sure there are several others, because for every human being you see, for those of us in media and comms, for every human being you see, that person is just representative of every other person.
Number.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we hear that wherever it is, there's a safe house where they stay, they are taught skill acquisition and all of that. But sadly, people in the community know that, these girls were part of those who were abducted, forced to marry some of their abductors. They've had children for them. So my question is going to be in two parts. One, are you okay? Are you fine with the level of reintegration they're getting? I mean, the steps taken, because these are school children. They went to school to study and then they were abducted. In the course of it, some of them were forced to change their religion, and then eventually forced to marry their captors. I read of one who they said she was forced to marry one person first. Later, they took her from that person to marry another person. Now it's 10 years. Some of them are still not back, but I'm talking about the ones that are back. Are you okay with the level of reintegration, the process, so far? And then I also read somewhere where some of the parents were pained about the fact that you got married to one of your captors, and the government is allowing a situation whereby where the ladies are kept is close to where the men are kept, so that way you can interact.
Sorry, just to add to this, right? Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned this, because presently going on, the Speaker of Niger State, there are about 100 orphan girls, and his idea of reintegration into society is to get them married. Now, even the Minister of Women Affairs decided to sue him. However, she has withdrawn it. So I just want to add that to this conversation. Yeah.
So, are you fine with, because the parents are talking about why are they allowing them to be close to each other? It's like the government supports this marriage knowing that it was forced. I think we would need you to speak to that, because we know you work in that space. So
why are you asking me if I'm fine or okay with it when you know I'm not?
It's for the DEVNOW audience. It's not for you.
So speak to the camera. Yeah.
From what we've seen with the reintegration process, and speaking to even the intervention I mentioned earlier going on in the Niger Delta, is that, and I re-emphasize that societies are not monolithic. You have men, you have women, you have children. And how the Boko Haram crisis have affected men, women, and children, it is quite different. And the experiences of the girls and the account that they've shared upon return are serious issues that should be considered in the intervention and the approaches that we take in the reintegration process. You said they were married. Most of them were raped countless times by numerous men. That trauma alone is something that needs to be addressed from a health perspective to ensure that they are healthy, do not have diseases as a result of that, but also from a psychosocial perspective to address the trauma of going through such circumstances. But what we are realizing with the reintegration process is that the communities that are meant to welcome them with open arms and make their return something worthwhile are equally traumatized. These are people that have lost their livelihood, their homes, their sense of community. They are dealing with their own realities about what next. Where are we? What is the next 5-10 years going to look for us as indigenes of Borno State? Then they are faced with returnees, and beyond their own greater sense of judgment, sometimes they are forced to ask questions about, do we even trust them? Are they spies coming to find out how to attack again? Because these are some of the questions that we've heard them ask, that while we want to accept them with open arms, not just the girls coming back, but those that voluntarily laid down arms and the returnees. How sure are we that it's not a plot to attack again? So there is mistrust, there is fear, there is concern. And we all know that an individual that is traumatized cannot give another person that is traumatized the needed attention. Right? So when these girls come back to their families, it's not the same. The families expect the girl that left years ago to come back the same way she left, and they are seeing a totally different person who has a total different experience that is strange to them. How do you address that issue?
Some of them have probably grown older. They don't even recognize them.
Yes, the relationship is even affected at the family unit. Some of them are coming back with children. And while they know that these children are their blood, there's something off. How the children came to be is questionable. We've had instances where the children are called bad blood, Boko Haram children, and what that is another conflict
some people
brewing.
In the community say Boko Haram
it's another
children.
Conflict brewing. These are children that if we do not change that narrative, will feel like individuals knocked out of society and would prefer to go back to the bush. For most of these girls, what they experienced in the bush is false love. A false sense of higher purpose, that what you're doing is grand and that they've offered you what community cannot offer you. Then you come back to the community and you're stigmatized. So most of them have recorded that they would prefer to go back to the bush because they were loved. They were cared for. So are we going to fail in our intervention at the reintegration process? There are a lot of things that need to be done. Things that need to be done touches on health, ensuring the health and safety of the women and the children, ensuring that the processes laid out by government and other partners for the reintegration are followed. There are different approaches. There's the government of Nigeria approach and the Borno model, and now they are looking at how to reconcile both. I gather, because they are quite different. Where the government approach has the high risk returnees go through the judicial system to, hold them accountable. The low risk go through rehabilitation, reconciliation, which in itself is not quite effective. More could be done before the reintegration, and the reintegration also is tailored at ensuring that they go back better individuals that can serve the communities that they come from. A lot needs to be done. Even the provision of the psychosocial support is either short-termed or not effective. The numbers are a question. What, do we have enough services to address the issues? For those that want to go back to school, how do we ensure that they feel safe in the school and that fingers are not pointed at them to say Boko Haram wife or Chibok girl? I am sure none of them would want to be called a Chibok girl, but we call them Chibok girls. So the labeling in itself indignifies the girls, the circumstances they've gone through, and now trying to make meaning of their lives. It's a lot of things, and I think I would want to use this as an opportunity to advocate that more needs to be done to ensure the safety and well-being of the girls, and to also cater for the communities who are receiving them back now to be better equipped to make the environment conducive for them to be there. And that government's effort alone would not take us there. We need all partners, all hands on deck to respond to the issues, to prevent the violence that might come up later on, or the conflict that might come up later on when issues are not addressed. And then also address the labeling of people. Even Boko Haram is not what they used to call themselves, it's what they were labeled as, and because it sold the news and promoted their agenda, it came to stay. So a lot of work needs to be done also on the part of the media. While we want the stories to be told accurately with facts, we also need to have a conflict sensitive lens, that we're telling the stories that do not further exacerbate conflict, that does not expose individuals, and that dignifies the people that we're telling their stories. A lot of advocacy has been done for justice. That is one area where everyone agrees that more needs to be done. So this lies primarily on the shoulder of government to ensure that those services are provided and that they are done judiciously. And then for the civil society organizations and the international non-governmental organizations, beautiful work over the years, but also sharing information about the nuances that we might be missing that has potential for conflict in the future, and addressing them now. You were asking earlier sustainability. So even with the reintegration process, we need to think about sustainability. We need to think about ownership. And we also need to think about the opportunities that we have now that we can latch on to create economic opportunities for these communities. But no, I've worked there, I've interacted with the communities, and I know that there are a lot of potentials for that state to bounce back bigger and better than what it was in the past, as well as the surrounding states also that experience Boko Haram.
Okay, so I want us to talk about justice, because this means a lot to our DEVNOW audience, as well as myself and Bumi. So we spoke about Boko Haram and we spoke about the perpetrators. We're talking about the miscreants, because right now we don't know if they're bandits or known gunmen or whatever they're called. But what we do know is that they are miscreants, they are criminals, and they are terrorists. And I guess that the federal government's act of peace building might be to rehabilitate some of these people who have laid down their arms,
the low risk,
back into society.
But
do you believe that that is justice? Because we just spoke in depth about what these women have been through. They have been raped, they have been completely diminished within, and then these people who have done this to them are rehabilitated back into society, almost like, oh, we're so sorry that you became a criminal and you did all these you committed all these atrocities, so your punishment is that we are going to forgive you and bring you back into society. And there are people who are saying these people should be hung. These people should be shot. These people should be put into a cell deep within the ocean and where they cannot escape for the next 1,000 years. And then these people are being, EFCC goes to a random hotel in Benin City and rounds up a few people and they put them in jail. And these are people that have stolen money. I'm not making a case for them. I'm not saying that they are doing well or it's not a crime. It's a terrible crime. They should be punished. But how is it justice that people like that are being put in prison and people who have ruined the lives of young girls, of the future of Nigeria, are being allowed to come back into society as if all they did was steal a pot of beans? Sorry, I'm getting too heated. How does that make you feel? I understand that it might be peace building, it might be the way to quiet things, but is that justice?
What are we quieting when the voices of the communities are so loud, but we don't know who is listening in terms of justice? Communities have always spoken about that, and not enough attention has been given to give communities closure on the processes of government. So it's important to understand that those that get reintegrated are the low risk associates. We also need to know that some of the members were forcefully conscripted from communities. It's not like they voluntarily joined, and some of them didn't carry out atrocities that they are being accused of. So there's a process of profiling them into high risk and low risk, and then those that are high risk go through that process that needs to be met with the judicial judgment and processes, and then the low risk go through a rehabilitation because they are equally traumatized by what they witnessed or what they were forced to do, and then also provided alternatives to prepare them to reintegrate back to community. It's not going to be a perfect approach because the numbers are large, the facilities are limited, the resources are limited. But I think for government and communities, there's need to come to there's need to work together to share understanding of the issues and the processes, so that assumptions are not made, and where there is a proof that a high risk associate is in the community, actions are taken. Because where people are scared, where people are wondering what is happening, they could also choose to take alternatives that are not progressive as well. He did it and got away with it. Why can't I do same?
Do mine too.
Pick up an arm, and banditry is the thing now, kidnapping is the thing now. Easily do those things. Your other question was around, I missed.
Was around was all about justice. I was asking, how is it justice that these people, if petty criminals and maybe criminals of fraud and the rest are being jailed, and these people are being reintegrated society? There are many people who argue that no, it doesn't matter whether you call them low risk, whether you committed a crime. They say ignorance is also is not applicable in the court of law. So some people still find that to be injustice, that these people are being... just imagine one of the girls just walking around the street and seeing one of the men who
perpetrated
who raped her. She's reliving her horror all over again, and that now diminishes the work that organizations like yours are doing. That's what I was...
Well, I think she's addressed.
But then you have addressed it, so I think you've answered my question.
So I think we need to start winding down gradually. Okay. So at this point, you could... I know you have lots of success stories. You can't read all out, but there are some that excite you, that when you're going to bed at night, you remember and you're happy. You wake up in the morning and you're happy. You're celebrating 20 years of being in Nigeria. So here's a good place to talk about some of the numbers, some of the success stories, that you've had over the years, taking stock of what Search has done in Nigeria.
The major success for us as an organization is our ability to adapt to the changing dynamics in communities. Our approach to the farmer-herder conflict 20 years ago is not the same. We've adapted from what we've learned over the years, and I've spoken about some of the tools that we're using now. Another success factor. So for us at Search, we say we exist to not exist. We are hoping that, at the end of the day, communities would be better equipped to do peace building without Search for Common Ground and would fizzle out. We've done this successfully in 2 countries where we closed as Search for Common Ground and handed over to local organizations to continue the work. We handed our radio stations to local organizations to continue the work. And it's our aspiration to do the same in Nigeria. We're hoping that we would fizzle out because
you believe it's possible?
It's possible. We've done it in 2 countries. We hope that we would fizzle out because more organizations would come up that would be able to do the work even better than Search for Common Ground. And one success story that we have is that at the moment we have about 5 to 6 local organizations that we're working with, and through either as subgrantees or as consortium partners that we're hoping would learn some of the approaches. So it's a shared learning. We're not coming to say we know it all. I keep saying this. It's shared learning. But we're hoping that their institutions would be strengthened and that they would be better able to access bigger funding to do the work that we do, and that their management systems would be strengthened as well. For those that were seeing improvements already, it's satisfying to working to those partnerships together. Another success story is the partnerships that we're having with government. I sincerely appreciate how government is opening itself now to development partners. We've successfully signed a couple of memorandum of understanding. And it's not just documents that are signed for the media to appreciate partnership on that lens. No, it's backed up by action plans on what to do to, address issues on different levels, access opportunities together at different levels as well. The biggest success story are my colleagues. There are about 80 searchers across Nigeria.
So you're
in
called
about
searchers. I love that.
in about 10 offices doing tremendous jobs. Some go on the high sea, some go to hard to reach communities on terrains that are difficult, taking videos of themselves as if it's all easy, but it's difficult. The risk that they take is appreciated. The results they bring back is appreciated, and the hope that they inspire at communities also, I hope, would go a long way even after we close our intervention, and that they wouldn't get tired or discouraged. We are a growing organization, and my hope is that Search is not just only a place where we change the world outside, but that we also impact the lives of the people that are working there.
I have to say this. I find it very poetic how your organization leaving a region is success. Because for most businesses or most organizations, like leaving means, oh my God, it didn't work.
Yeah.
But for your organization, leaving means that you've actually done the work. I just wanted to highlight that. I think it's so poetic. I think it's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Word.
Thank
All
you.
right. So on the final note, we know that all of the work Search has done and is still doing couldn't be possible without your donors. So here's a good place to talk about your donors. You want to mention their names?
We'll list it out on the screen. So.
We will do that, but I mean, it don't hurt for you to also talk about your donors.
A big thank you to our development partners who believed in Search for Common Ground's approach and make it easy for us to go into this partnership to ensure that the needs of communities are met in a way that is transformative but also sustainable. Thank you to the Netherlands Embassy to the European Union, to IOM, to the Dutch Embassy. If I forget my donors now, what am I doing?
Okay, so we have a practice here.
Yeah.
I just needed you to mention some. So what we're going to do is we'll get all the logos.
Okay.
That's our practice.
So if you don't see
And
your
I'll
logo,
be like, thank you to all of you.
And then
Yeah,
we just
just
put all the logos on the screen. So at that point, you are without excuse.
Yeah.
So that you say, I forgot one.
Yeah.
So if you don't now see your logo there,
you know what to do.
you know what to do.
So you can say thank you all now. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
All right. So it has been, there was a
Your
bit of
colors today, I don't understand you.
today.
We chose to be very colorful today. Have you noticed?
Yeah, it's a rainbow
Blending
thing.
into the
Yeah,
chair.
it's
You-
blending into the very. It's like we're on vacation.
Yeah. So
Very tropical.
it has been. Can you just leave my colors
Yeah,
alone?
sorry.
Thank you.
You know he's an old man, so
I'm trying to.
I try to respect him
Okay.
as an elderly man. Sorry,
You know, if we're not on camera, like I said, God will judge you. But we're on camera, so I'll just leave that. So it has been. There was excitement. There was emotion.
see how our
there
voice
was-
got louder. You know,
yeah.
at first we were saying, "Let the passion come out." I was like, I'm sure Holoski is hearing her very well.
Of course. As a sound man, of course. So we've had a mix in this conversation, and what we can only hope for is sustainability, because, like she said, search to say they've done the work will be at some point to close up and say we're done, and put structures in place to make sure that they're able to continue the work and peace building continues like that. So again, we want to say a very big thank you to the country director Fatima Baka of Search for Common Grounds Nigeria for taking out time from a busy schedule. Country directors are not. They're not people just be walking around and say, I saw somebody, who do you see? A country director? It doesn't work like that. These are very, very busy people. And from what she said, you know that she's very busy. We're grateful
so
that
much.
you took out time to come on DevNow to intimate the DevNow audience on what Search for Common Grounds is doing in Nigeria. We really appreciate that, and we want to say thank you. And so this is where we're going to tie it up for today on DevNow. Of course, we'll be bringing you another exciting episode, but please see our handles, follow us, like our pages, comment, share the content.
Please share our
the
content. Thank you.
This, according
In
to
fact, for every time you share it, there's a blessing waiting for you.
Hey, she has gone prophetic. No, wait, you need to get that again. Okay.
So the Spirit told me.
Which spirit?
Excuse me.
Okay, sorry.
That for every time you share any of our content on your WhatsApp, on your TikTok, on your Instagram, on your Twitter, that thing you have been waiting for, God is aligning it. So let's say it was 10 miles away. God brings it 8 miles closer.
Amen.
Do you understand? If it's 8 miles away, He brings it 6 miles closer.
Amen.
So for every time you share it, that's what happens. Don't ask me how I know. Just know that that's how it happens.
That's how it happens.
Man of God, woman of God, you are blessed. Thank you.
Yeah, Fatima wanted to say something.
Yes, just to say thank you. I want to appreciate DevNow for this laudable initiative where
you.
you're bringing development partners to share insights into their world, demystifying the development world, but also talking about the impact of the work. That is not often shared. It's something that I think a lot of development partners need to learn to do. Let beyond the communities we work with, let people know how far we go to ensure that the goals and objectives that we set are met, the challenges that we're experiencing, and also opening ourselves up sometimes to scrutiny, but importantly to feedback. Until we get feedback, we wouldn't know in true sense what is working, what is not working, and areas to improve. So I hope that this would be an opportunity to also gather some of those feedback about how we can improve our interventions as well. Thank you so much, and we would definitely love to partner with DevNow to share the work that you're doing on our own platforms as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Catch you on the next episode.
From the old man and the young girl.